You maxed your TFSA every year, without fail. You did what everyone told you to do, and in 30 years, it won't be enough. Not even close. Today, I'll show you exactly why, and the one thing that actually changes the number.
Sara is 29 years old. She lives in Calgary, works as a project coordinator, and earns about $62,000 a year. She shares a 2-bedroom apartment in Beltline with a roommate. Rent is $1,450 a month for her half, which, by Calgary standards in 2024, is genuinely reasonable. She has no car payment. She has no credit card balance. She brings lunch to work 4 days out of 5. By the standards of Canadian personal finance content, Sara is the success story. She is the person the articles are written about. She is doing it right. And for the last 3 years, she has done something that most Canadians her age never do. Every January, she maxes her TFSA, the full contribution. No excuses, no delays. She sets a calendar reminder in December, moves the money in the first week of January, and considers it done for the year. Box checked. Responsibility discharged. Year started correctly.
She feels good about it. The kind of good that feels like safety, like she figured out something her parents never taught her. Her mother has an RRSP that she contributed to sporadically in her 30s and then stopped when the kids came and the mortgage got heavy. Her father had a pension, government job, 22 years, and never thought about any of this. Sara is the first person in her family who is actively building something. She knows it, she is proud of it, and she should be. But here is what Sara does not know, what nobody told her, what the bank that opened her TFSA did not put in the welcome email, and what the financial influencer who first explained TFSAs to her on Instagram did not mention in the caption.
Her TFSA is sitting in a high-interest savings account, earning 4.25%. And that single fact, not her income, not her rent, not her spending, that single fact is on track to cost her somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 by the time she is 65. She is not doing something wrong. She is doing exactly what the system was designed to make her do. And the system was not designed with Sara's retirement in mind.
Let me show you the numbers. Not rounded, not approximate. The actual math that Sara has never seen. Sara is 29. She contributes $7,000 per year, the current annual TFSA limit. She plans to do this consistently until she turns 65. That is 36 years. Total out-of-pocket money contributed over those 36 years, $252,000. That is the number that never changes in this comparison. The money going in is identical in both scenarios. The only variable is what the money is sitting in. Scenario 1. Sara keeps her TFSA exactly as it is. High-interest savings account, 4.25%, compounded annually. Let's follow the money.
At year 10, Sara is 39. Her account has grown to approximately $89,000. She has contributed $70,000 of her own money. The account has generated about $19,000 in interest. She feels fine. She is ahead of most of her friends. The number is going up. At year 20, Sara is 49. The account sits at roughly $227,000. She has put in $140,000 of her own money. The account has generated about $87,000. This is the stage where most Canadians start to feel genuinely good. $250,000. That is more than most people ever accumulate. Sara feels ahead. At year 30, Sara is 59. The savings account has grown to approximately $475,000, 6 years from standard retirement. She has contributed $210,000. The interest has added $265,000, just under $500,000. This feels like success. And at year 36, when Sara is 65, $568,000.
Now, scenario 2. Same Sara, same $7,000 per year, same TFSA, same 36 years. Different asset inside the account. XEQT, a broad market ETF that holds over 9,000 companies across 47 countries, Canada, the United States, Europe, Japan, emerging markets. The fund has an annual management fee of 0.2%. Over the last 15 years, broad global equity ETFs of this type have returned an average of approximately 8% annually. Not every year. Some years are negative. Some years are exceptional. But 8% is the long-run average that financial planners use for planning purposes, and it is supported by over a century of equity market data. At year 10, Sara is 39. Her ETF account has grown to approximately $110,000. The difference between the two scenarios at this stage, $21,000. Meaningful, but not alarming. Both feel like wins.
At year 20, Sara is 49. The ETF account sits at approximately $347,000. The savings account sits at $227,000. The gap is now $120,000. $120,000. That is 5 years of Sara's rent. That is 2 complete university educations at a Canadian school. That is the gap between 2 people making identical decisions with identical money, separated only by what sits inside the container. At year 30, Sara is 59. The ETF account has grown to approximately $864,000. The savings account sits at $475,000. The gap is $389,000, nearly $400,000. That is the median price of a house in Lethbridge. That is 22 years of Sara's current grocery bills. That is, for most Canadians, the actual difference between retiring comfortably at 65 and working until 71.
And at 65, the final comparison. $568,000 in the savings account. $1,328,000 in the ETF account. The gap between these two numbers is $760,000. $760,000, not because Sara did anything differently, not because she contributed more, not because she made more money or took more risk or worked harder, but because of what the money was sitting in while it grew. $760,000 is the price of a detached home in Airdrie, just outside Calgary. It is 38 years of Sara's current rent. It is the kind of number that, when people hear it, they assume there must be a catch. There is no catch. This is the math that the financial industry has known for decades and has had no particular incentive to show you.
So why doesn't anyone tell you this? If the math is this clear, if the difference is this large, if the solution is this straightforward, why is Sara sitting in a high-interest savings account? Why are most Canadian TFSAs sitting in cash or GICs or bank savings products when the alternative is this obviously superior over any long time horizon?
Part of the answer is structural. When Sara opened her TFSA at her bank 3 years ago, the bank representative walked her through the options. There was a high-interest savings account option, there was a GIC option, there was an investment option, but the investment option required a separate meeting with a financial advisor, a suitability questionnaire, and a conversation about risk tolerance that Sara was not prepared to have at 26 when she was just trying to open an account and do the right thing. The path of least resistance was the savings account. She took it. The bank did not discourage her. The bank sells savings products. A high-interest savings account at 4.25% is a product the bank profits from. The bank lends your money out at a higher rate and keeps the spread. An ETF bought through Wealthsimple is a product the bank does not profit from at all. This is not a conspiracy. It is a business model. But understanding the business model helps you understand why the advice you receive from a bank is always going to be, at best, incomplete.
Part of the answer is psychological. A savings account is comfortable. The balance goes up every month. It never drops. You never open the app in February and see a number that is smaller than it was in November. For most people, that emotional consistency is worth an enormous amount. Worth, it turns out, about $760,000 worth. The volatility of an equity ETF is real. XEQT dropped 18% in 2022. Someone who had $200,000 in their account in January 2022 watched it become $164,000 by October. That is $36,000 that was there and then was not. For most people, that experience is unbearable. They move to cash. They lock in the loss. They spend the next several years in a savings account while the market recovers and runs past where it was.
But here is what the drop looked like from the other side. By December 2023, XEQT had recovered everything and returned to new highs. Someone who held through the entire 2022 correction, someone who did not check the account, someone who kept their automatic contributions running, ended 2023 ahead of where they started 2022. The drop was real. The panic was understandable. The decision to sell was the only way to actually lose. The word risk gets used in Canadian personal finance to mean volatility, short-term fluctuation, a month where the number is smaller. But the actual risk, the risk that determines whether your retirement works or doesn't, is not volatility. It is the cumulative cost of avoiding volatility. 36 years of 4.25% instead of 8%. That is the risk nobody shows you, because it is invisible. It does not show up as a red number on your phone. It shows up at 65, quietly, as the gap between what you have and what you needed.
Here is what Sara actually does, step by step, starting this week. Step 1. Log into your TFSA and find the holdings page. Not the balance, the holdings, what your money is actually sitting in. If it says anything other than an ETF ticker, if it says HISA, GIC, cash, savings account, or any branded bank savings product, your container is right and your contents are wrong. Write down the balance. You will need it for the next step.
Step 2. Open a Wealthsimple or a Questrade account if you do not already have one. Both are free to open. Both are regulated Canadian investment dealers registered with IIROC. Wealthsimple has a slightly simpler interface, better for first-time investors. Questrade has more features and lower foreign exchange costs, better if you eventually want US-listed ETFs. Either one works for this. The process takes 15 to 20 minutes online and requires a piece of government-issued ID. Both have apps that work on iOS and Android.
Step 3. Initiate a direct registered transfer. This is the most important step, and most people get it wrong. Do not withdraw your money from your current TFSA and then deposit it into the new one. A withdrawal and recontribution counts against your contribution room and can trigger an overcontribution penalty if done in the same calendar year. Instead, call your current bank or log into their platform and initiate what is called a direct transfer out of a registered account. Tell them you want to transfer your TFSA to Wealthsimple or Questrade. They will ask for the new account details. You provide them. The transfer happens between institutions, is processed as a registered transfer, and does not count against your contribution room. It typically takes 7 to 10 business days. Some banks charge a transfer out fee, usually between $50 and $150. It is worth paying.
Step 4. Once the money arrives, buy XEQT. One ticker, one decision. The ETF holds Canadian equities, U.S. equities, international developed market equities, and emerging market equities, the entire global economy, weighted by market size, rebalanced automatically. The management expense ratio is 20 basis points per year. On $50,000, that is $100 per year. On $200,000, it is $400 per year. This is the entire cost. There are no advisor fees, no commissions, no annual account fees at Wealthsimple for accounts over 0.
Step 5. Automate the contribution. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your TFSA every 2 weeks or every month, or once a year in January, whatever works for your cash flow. The specific schedule matters less than the fact that it is automatic. A $270 bi-weekly transfer adds up to $7,020 per year, just over the annual TFSA limit. If you can only do $100 bi-weekly, that is $2,600 per year. Start there. Increase when you can. Every dollar that enters the account and buys XEQT is a dollar that is now compounding at the long-run equity return rate instead of the bank savings rate.
Let me show you what different contribution levels do to Sarah's outcome, to make this concrete for people who cannot max the limit right now. At $200 per month, $2,400 per year, Sarah reaches $500,000 by approximately age 67, 2 years past standard retirement age, but still a functional retirement with meaningful assets. At $400 per month, $4,800 per year, she reaches $500,000 by age 62, 3 years early, built on $400 a month and a 33-year horizon. At the full $7,000 annual limit, approximately $583 per month, she crosses $500,000 at age 56. With 9 years remaining before 65, the account continues to grow. By 65, she is past $1.3 million. The amount matters, but the asset inside always matters more. Run those exact same numbers at 4.25%, and the 56 becomes 69, the 62 becomes 74, and the 67 becomes 81. The math is not complicated. The math is just honest in a way that is commercially inconvenient for the institutions that hold Canadian savings. Before I close, here are the 5 mistakes I see most often in Canadian TFSAs across every income level, every city, every age group that is old enough to have had one for more than a few years. Mistake 1. Holding cash or a bank savings product inside the TFSA and calling it investing. This is the Sara mistake. It is by far the most common, and it is the most expensive over a 30-year horizon. The account is registered correctly, the contribution is made correctly, the asset inside is the wrong choice. The version of this that costs the most is someone who opens their TFSA at age 23, puts it in the bank's default savings product, contributes every year, and discovers at 55 that they have half of what they could have had. Not because they were irresponsible, because they were not told that the container and the contents are 2 separate decisions.
Mistake 2, and this is the one that generates CRA penalty letters, withdrawing money from a TFSA in 1 calendar year and recontributing the same money in the same calendar year. The TFSA has a recontribution rule that most Canadians do not know and that no one at the bank bothered to explain. If you withdraw $10,000 from your TFSA in October, your recontribution room for that $10,000 does not return until January 1st of the following year. If you redeposit in November or December of the same year, you have over-contributed. The penalty is 1% of the excess amount per month charged by the CRA until you remove the excess. On $10,000 over-contributed for 2 months, that is $200 in penalties on money that is legally yours, earned inside a tax-free account. It is one of the most avoidable, expensive mistakes in Canadian personal finance.
Mistake 3. Using the TFSA as an emergency fund. The TFSA is a long-term wealth vehicle. An emergency fund is a separate, liquid account that sits outside the investment structure, ideally in a genuine high-interest savings account at EQ Bank or a credit union, separate from both the checking account and the TFSA. When an emergency happens and you need $5,000 quickly, you want to pull it from a place that does not disrupt your investment timeline, does not trigger a recontribution problem, and does not force you to sell ETF units at whatever price the market is at that day. The TFSA, doing double duty as both emergency fund and investment account, is trying to solve 2 problems with 1 tool, and it tends to solve neither one well.
Mistake 4. Waiting for the right moment to invest. There is no right moment. There is only time in the market and time out of it. The 2 worst performing decades for the Canadian stock market in the last 100 years were the 1930s and the 2000s. In both cases, someone who invested consistently through the bad decade and held through the recovery came out significantly ahead of someone who waited on the sidelines for conditions to improve. The moment you are waiting, the market correction, the rate cut, the economic clarity will not feel like a clear signal when it arrives. It will feel like more uncertainty. The money that is working today is always worth more than the money waiting for a better day.
Mistake 5. Choosing complexity
over consistency. There is an entire ecosystem of Canadian personal finance content built around more sophisticated strategies: dividend investing, covered calls, sector rotation, U.S.-listed ETFs, Smith maneuver, RRSP meltdown strategies. Some of these are useful. All of them are less important than simply contributing to an XEQT holding TFSA every year without interruption. The single biggest predictor of retirement outcomes in Canada is not investment sophistication, it is continuity. How many years did you contribute? Did you stay invested through the bad years? Did you automate the decision so that it did not depend on your mood or your market opinion in any given month? XEQT, held in a TFSA for 35 years, funded automatically, is the unsexy answer that produces the result. Done beats perfect. Invested beats researching.
Sara did not fail. The system failed Sara. She was handed a container and told the container was the solution. She did everything the brochure said. She contributed every year. She was responsible in the way that most people her age are not. And she is on track to be $760,000 short of where she could have been, not because of anything she chose, but because of what nobody told her when she signed the form at 26. That is what this channel is about. Not to frighten you, not to make you feel behind, to run the numbers honestly, out loud, so you can make a real decision with complete information. The fix for Sara takes about 45 minutes. Open the new account, initiate the transfer, set up the automatic contribution, buy XEQT. Every month after that, the decision is already made. The money moves. The market works. The compound growth accumulates quietly without requiring her to be interested or motivated or emotionally resilient to short-term drops. The system runs. If your TFSA looks like Sara's did, if it is sitting in a savings account, if you have never seen a holdings page that showed you an ETF ticker, the most valuable thing you can do this week is log in and check.
Not this month, this week. Every month the money sits in the wrong asset is a month of compound growth that is going to the bank instead of your retirement. If you are in Calgary and this looks familiar, or Toronto, or Vancouver, or Montreal, where the stakes are even higher because the cost of living leaves less room for error, drop a comment with your city and your current TFSA setup. I read every one of them. And if this was useful, the next video covers the CPP timing decision, why most Canadians take it too early, and why that single choice is worth $84,000 to the average retiree. I'll see you there.